Welcome back to Where in the World, where we have real conversations with young professionals about life and career, all while attempting to guess where in the world they are. We'll learn something new about our guests and what it's like to forge your own career path as a young professional. And when we say young, we're really talking about a state of mind. You'll learn by watching this web series that your career will take many dips and turns over time. And just when you think you've made it, you might have to scrap it all and start from scratch. Sometimes that's the way it goes. We ride the tide. I am your host, Clary Johnson, and I'm joined today by Ashia Amavè from Brooklyn, New York. She is founder of Brand by CMG, a brand strategy and consultancy. The big, hairy question we're asking today is how can young professionals master the art of storytelling to advance in their careers? But before we jump in, let's do some housekeeping. This is a mini web series game show. The questions will range from standard like interview questions to more personal questions about our guests' careers. You'll notice we're both here today with different backgrounds. In between questions, we'll each have an opportunity to guess where in the world the other person is. The first person to guess correctly wins. Our guests can ask for clues along the way, and our audience can also help out by dropping questions and clues in the chat. So please join me in welcoming Ashaya. Hello.
Hi, great job. Wow, seriously, you need to get picked up. This
You're
is
hilarious.
show ready.
Well, I really appreciate that. You and I had the pleasure of connecting at Squarespace Circle Day last year, and you just have this magnetism about you. And I remember seeing you across the room and thinking to myself, I've got to connect with her before I leave.
Oh, thank you.
And I'm so glad we did because what I found out is that we have quite a few things in common. We both have background in journalism and marketing, and we both share a passion for helping people amplify their stories. I'm really looking forward to today's conversation because storytelling is an art as ancient as time. In
Yeah,
fact, some of the earliest evidence we humans have about storytelling dates back to cave drawings more than 30,000 years ago. Storytelling can open new doors, forge new connections, offer new perspectives, and empower us to express our most complex experiences. So, today, we're going to be talking about the power of storytelling, and I can't think of a better person to lead this conversation than you.
thank you.
Yeah, and I can't wait to hear your story. So, let's kick it off with our most commonly asked interview question. Tell us a little bit about yourself and your background.
Well, thank you for having me. As we go through this interview, I'm sure there'll be more times for me to talk specifically about different parts of my background. But right now, just for the sake of time and not being redundant, I'm just going to give you the briefing. And I am a creative. I really stand in that title now because essentially that's what I love to do, right? I literally love to create. And I realized that I love to create in different forms. When I was in journalism, I love to create via writing. When I was a marketer, I love to create by creating compelling ideas and like connecting with others and drawing out stories of the audience that we want to speak to. And now I'm using all of those experiences as a personal brand strategist to help people do all those things. I've also worked as a model for the past 9 years, which I was creating with my body. So it just dawned on me kind of like late last year, like, no, I'm not, this isn't just a title that doesn't really make sense for me. Like it makes perfect sense. And I think just because it was being used so much, I felt in the beginning a little insecure about using it. But I'm like, no, this actually is exactly who I am. I am a creative who loves to make things.
Yeah, I mean, I respect that so much because I get that. I get kind of going through life, figuring things out, and then getting to this place where you kind of take a look at all the things that you've done and you've accomplished, and you're like, wow, I'm really attracted to making cool stuff. Like, that's just what I like to do. And
Mm-hmm.
it doesn't really matter what the medium is. I can adjust to whatever it is, whether it's creating with my body or my hands or my mind.
Yeah.
or creating music. And that's something that I have also kind of discovered about myself over time.
Yeah.
And then I'm also connecting with this thought of like not really wanting to like put yourself in a box or like stick to an identity or like, kind of seeing other people saying, I'm a creative, I'm a creator, that's who I am, that's what I do. Or even when it comes to entrepreneurship and
Yeah.
having like this hesitancy to really like embrace a an identity or embrace a title because it can be a little bit scary.
Yeah.
For me, that was marketing and writing. Like
Hmm.
when I think about I used to have people who would come up and they'd ask me what I do. And then they'd be like, "Oh, so you're a writer." And like, I don't know if I would consider myself a writer because I haven't written a book. And it made me really start to think about how I um, identify or how I like. It made me really think about like what parameters I'm kind of putting around myself
Exactly. Yeah.
or the ceilings that I'm creating for myself and saying, well, I'm not a writer because I haven't reached this specific level. Right.
Exactly. Totally.
Or this idea that I can't possibly be a writer because there are better writers than me. Like that
Exactly.
person over there is a writer, not me.
Right.
So I totally get that, and I really respect your vulnerability, and I'm glad happy that you kind of brought that to the table.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's now like my superpower, right? It helps me it helps remind myself of like who I am, what I'm capable of, especially as I'm in this new kind of season in my life, which we'll talk about. I'm like I used to think that I needed to learn more, more, and more, but I'm actually finding like I read randomly. I was looking for a certain document and I went through my emails and I found this short story that I wrote back when I was in high school and I literally could not believe it was me. Like I was
Those
waiting
are
for
the
the
best.
evidence to be like, no, 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 like somebody sent this to me. And when I saw at the end, like I was all like, yeah, Mr. Dugan had me write this because such and such. Like I couldn't believe it. But it
Mm,
was so affirming because it was like, exactly, right? Like I knew I had this within me. I knew I always known what I was capable of. But like you were saying, when you start, operating in society or getting older, it's kind of like we lose that gut um,
mm.
intuition and we start trying to place ourselves in these boxes. And then when we do that, if it doesn't fit correctly, then we kind of, that's where the self confidence kind of dim and.
Yeah. And I would say for anyone who's listening or watching this is your sign to keep going, like keep pushing forward because I've also had experiences like that where read something I wrote in high school and I was like, if I had just kept writing,
Right.
like if I had just kept going, what would that actually look like from a storytelling perspective? And so I'm
Or
excited
maybe
to
the
yeah,
confidence that you had to
yeah.
try, right? Like just
Mhm.
try writing. Like I feel like now, even if you didn't stay on the trajectory of writing, but just the confidence that you had to like just commit to something. Like now I feel like as adults, we're just so afraid to try stuff,
Mhm.
because I know, again, speaking from personal experience, I got to a point that I only wanted to try things if I knew it was going to be a sure success. Right. So after a while, even though like I have history of seeing that I could probably do well at this if it just wasn't guaranteed, I was like, oh, like why bother? So
Hmm.
yeah, getting back to that of like it's okay, like we'll be okay, and because we were drawn to it for some reason. There's probably something there.
Yeah. And it's that the trying and and the failing or the not succeeding or the struggle or the
Yeah,
challenge or seeing the imperfections that
yeah,
actually lead to kind of that growth and that acceleration. Cool. Well, I'm feeling really confident right now
okay,
in trying to guess where you are
okay,
because you look like I'm just going to describe this for
yeah,
people who may not be watching, who may be listening. You look like okay, so it's definitely a building of some sort. I mean, it's a building. But when you first came on, when I first saw it, I asked if this was a real background.
yeah,
So it feels like it looks like a co-working space to me. It looks like a, a really fancy WeWork. However, there also is, it's giving me some like green greenhouse vibes. There are windows all over the place. It looks like definitely on the left hand side there are lots of windows. On the right there are some windows at the top, in the back, and on the ceiling there are windows. It's very industrial. I see lots of woods. I see lots of metals, and then even like the staircases, the ramps going up. Like
Yeah.
imagine you're in, yeah, there's some seats in the background. They look very like something like if you were to walk into a very fancy furniture store,
Okay.
that kind of furniture is sitting in the background. Um okay, cool. So I
Yeah.
mean, I have to first guess. You're definitely on planet Earth, but now I have to guess like where on planet Earth you are in terms of the
Hmm.
continents. I'm going to venture to say that you are in the United States. Are you in the United States?
Yes.
Okay, that's really helpful. Can you give me a clue about this place?
um, it's an office.
Oh, it is.
Hmm.
Sounds right. Okay, so it is an office. Now we have to find out what office this is. Cool. Well, it's your turn. Tell me.
Yeah. So it's funny that you were saying MySpace looked like the workspace. I think at first I thought this was a workspace, but now it looks more like a restaurant. Um, it's like I don't. It's between those two. Like I don't know. The chairs are making me feel like it's a restaurant, even those lights. But uh, I have to choose between those two. Like I'm even trying to look at the people. Like I think I'm gonna go. I think I'm gonna say this is a restaurant because I see some condiments on the table.
Okay. Well, my clue for you is going to be that it's actually somewhere in between a workspace and a restaurant.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, somewhere in between. Not
Yeah,
not
somewhere in
quite
between.
a
Yeah,
restaurant, but also not totally a workspace either.
right. Okay.
Hmm. Hmm.
I don't even know where to go with that, but okay. Cool.
All right. Well, let's take it to the next question then.
Okay.
You talked a lot about your career and the different phases of your career. Can you just kind of walk us through that journey?
Yes. So I would say let's start kind of around eighth grade. I think high school is approaching, and I'm super excited about high school. I felt like I watched all the Disney movies, all the Nickelodeon movies, and like I feel like they just made high school look like, the coming of age like thing that you want to experience so bad. So I was ready. I was super excited. But I also knew that at the time I felt like okay, high school is going to kind of set the trajectory of like what I should start figuring out. So I think around 8th grade I started doing a volunteer writers program. It was like for a school. It was like for a newspaper for children. It was called Children's Press Line. I used to go after school. I think I also went in high school. It's kind of blurry, but I know it was around middle school. So that's how the refinement of journalism was happening. When I was younger, I used to write poems and things like that, but it wasn't really like a real thing. And then when I started doing journalism, that's when I started like getting experience interviewing people, weaving different points together to kind of create a story, and I really enjoyed it. So in high school, um, I excelled in English. I was in English honors for my junior and senior year, which I was just so proud of because it felt good to like really not just be good at something, but to feel like because I'm really good at this thing, I can get another layer of um, education. Like what I loved about my honors classes is like the quote unquote advanced work was work that I wanted to do. Like it was fun. And I was like, I feel like that was the first inclination that I had of like when I want to do something, it really feels good, regardless of how taxing, on paper it might look like it is. So with that, I went to school for journalism. I went to Penn State. I majored in journalism with a minor in English. um, it worked really, really hard in school. I was just talking to somebody else about it the other day, and they're like, "Why?" And I'm like, "I can't even tell you. Like, I don't even. There was no pressure at home. Like, my mom wasn't like, you got to get this. You." Everybody was very chill, but I think I just put that pressure on myself. Um, Things that I'm unlearning now is that I assume that there were expectations put on me, or um, maybe I exasperated expectations and felt like I had to do a certain thing in order to be seen as this person that I thought I wanted to be seen by, or people wanted to see me by, which meant that not only go to school but really be in every club and all this stuff. And at the time they were also really pushing like, oh, you need to be a part of this internship in order to get this job and this job. So I was just trying to be, perfect Patty. I was just trying to make sure I had all my box checked. But so that's the con that I hope we could talk about how to not do that for young professionals. But the pro was I loved my classes, and when I struggled I always reached out to a tutor. Like, I was
Mhm.
never too proud, like, and I loved it. It I realized I just need more time, right? Sometimes, like, getting something in a 45-minute period just isn't enough for me, and it doesn't mean that, I'm not engaged or like I don't want to get it. I just need more time. So the tutor was so helpful. I did tutoring for math and French. Even sometimes with my papers, when I wrote them, like, even if she kind of gave me a grade that wasn't, like, let's say she gave me like a C or a B, I knew that I can make it better. But because I was the one that wrote it the first time, I just needed somebody to help me think outside of myself, which is what I love about collaborating with other creatives now. So yeah, it was awesome. Like, that helped, that gave me hope. Like, that made me feel like, because when I first got to college, I did feel a little undeveloped than the rest of my peers. But knowing that I had the tutor, made me feel like, okay, like, I'm not drowning here, right? Like, I could maintain. And I end up graduating a semester early because
Wow.
I was taking, so that's probably why I was stressed. I didn't even know. But I was take my freshman year, I came in taking 18 credits a semester. So I didn't even know, like, that was my norm. So by the time before junior year came around, they were like, yeah, you're gonna be done like quicker. And I was like, what? So I guess that was a pleasant surprise. So from after I graduated from Penn State, I had my first job, which was in digital marketing. I kind of felt disillusioned from journalism at the time. BuzzFeed was really popping, and I just was like, I didn't come here to learn AP style to do listicles. Like, no. And I didn't want, not only did I not want to do the hard beat news of like New York Times, I also knew that it was going to be, like, you got to start in real low. And I didn't want to do that either. I was like, I don't want to like come home from school and like work an internship. Like, I want a job, like a job making real money. So I wasn't interested in that. And yeah, it just wasn't as fulfilling. Journalism wasn't what I thought it was, but obviously I took those skills. So I ended up getting a role. It ended up being an internship, ironically, but it was like a 40-hour, 9 to 5 internship. The only thing that kind of made it an internship was that I didn't get benefits. Um, but yeah, I was a digital marketing coordinator, but in that role, I kind of really did everything. But it was great. It gave me confidence because I was coming into this new role. I never really worked in marketing. Of course, there's some marketing tied to journalism, but that was never my concentration. But I learned so much. I worked with such a small, great team that was empowering me. Like, try this. What do you want to? What do you think? Go ahead, give it a go. Like, literally, like, I would come to them with, wouldn't this be crazy? And they're like, yeah, do it. And I'm like,
Yep.
you sure? Me? Okay. So that was really cool. That really, again, it empowered me. It gave me so much confidence. So that internship was a year. After that, I end up I was looking for opportunities. L'Oreal, the body shop was downsizing and getting bought by L'Oreal at the time. So there was just a lot up in the air about if I could work at the company still. And I didn't want to just wait around and kind of feel like I, you know, was holding the bag at the end of the situation. So I went networking. I was taking a digital marketing course at the time at General Assembly. And I told my peers that I was looking for a job. I told them that my internship was ending. And one of my classmates called in a favor for me. She knew somebody that worked at Hearst Magazines and asked, somehow if I can get an interview with the HR department. And I did that. I came across this role that I was hoping probably I could get back to journalism and marketing, but this role was to be an executive assistant in the they called it integrated media of Hearst magazines, but essentially it was the department that if you wanted to run an ad in more than one title at a time, that you had to go through essentially wholesale. And there was a whole team that let's say you were Oreo, there was a team that would make a different ad in the magazine if you were Good Housekeeping versus if you were Esquire. Right. So I was going to be the executive assistant to the VP of that division. And, I especially looking back, like, I think I knew I shouldn't like really have been there. I was like, but I want a job security. Like, I was really nervous, right? I was coming from that thing. It was a real job. It didn't have the, internship. It had benefits. It had that whole thing. And it was at Hearst Magazines. And as somebody who, although I had been removed from journalism for a year, like, that was always my dream to like work at, as a journalist, to work at Hearst Magazine. So I think I rationalized like, yeah, it'll be fine. And it's okay. Like, it's fine. Like, high pitched voice, like, yeah. And I remember before I got the job, like, I had an interview with the VP, and I always respect him for this because he was just very honest. And he was like, the person that had this job before you, like, the reason why she's not like it's open is because she died. And she was like in her 70s. So he was like, this job might be a little slow for you. And I was like, no, it'll be fine. Like, I'm like, it'll be fine, but thank you. And he was even like, you let me know, like, let's give it like 2 weeks. Like, and I was literally dead set. Like, I don't care what's going to happen. Like, I am not leaving. So
You're like job security.
yeah. And I was I was 20, probably at the time, 21 or 22. I was so excited. Like, are you kidding me? And I was
Like
just
50 years?
Yeah.
That's nothing.
Right? Well, no. So the deal was that if I did that position for like 2 years, that they would transition me into like a marketing role.
Oh.
So that was kind of like the sell. Like,
Yeah.
all right, if you could, do this here, which even at the time I thought was such a sham, because it was like, well, even if that benefits me, like, I'm not doing anything in marketing. Like, I'm literally just sitting here. That's a whole, but that kind of like didn't impress me the way that they thought, or, I was just like, oh, so jobs are just kind of like given here because like, rub your back, you rub mine kind of thing. Anyway, so I did that job. My boss ended up being right. It was super boring. I was falling asleep at my desk. I would try, the VP at the time, he had 10 directors and they each had assistants. So you can imagine how far removed I was from like actually being involved in any work or like any say so. Like, even if somebody was like, oh, I need you to reach out to this person or research this, they had their assistant do it. And then I used to go up to the assistant to be like, can I help you? Like, I was just like, I would go to everybody like begging for work. But what I did while I was there was Hearst is a great network of a place to be in. And, I kind of had like security clearance to kind of get to access to whoever I wanted. So I would just email people all day. Like, hey, I'm this, like, I would love to speak with you. Like, just to, again, like connect, just to learn from these people. I was asking people how they got there, what they like about their job, where do they want to go next. Like, so yeah, really, it was like my personal networking hub. But during that time, I was doing a lot of thinking about, I was reading all these self-help books and what do you want to do? Who do you want to be? How do you want to vision your life? And somewhere in there, and I remember that because I have a journal, somewhere in there, I was thinking, or some book, something said, if you could do anything, what would you do? And modeling was always an interest for me, but it was never the right time. Like, when I was younger, I just wanted to be a kid. Like, I didn't want to do that kind of commitment, although I love taking the pictures. But when we went inside the offices, it was just too intimidating for me. I was afraid. And I really liked I didn't like the idea of like what I would have had to sacrifice or compromise in order to be a child model. So the timing wasn't right. And then when I graduated high school, I wanted to go to college. So the timing wasn't right again.
Mm.
I was submitting when I was in college, but again, they were like, so you're not living in New York? Like, this isn't really going to work. So I was like, oh my gosh, look, I think I can try this. Like, I've always wanted to try this. Like,
Wow.
this will be great. So, and I was already kind of looking for a reason to leave that job. And that used to be like my safety thing of like, I'm not just gonna quit. I'm gonna tell them that I'm leaving and do something else. So it's not, so bad. So yeah, that's what I did. I left and I was like, I'm gonna pursue my modeling career. And they were like, great, like good for you. The VP, like he was very kind and great. He didn't say told you so or anything like that. He was really nice. I left my job. I modeled for 9 years. That is
Wow.
such a long story. I'm still modeling, but just not in the capacity that I used to, like not like with an agency and not
Mhm.
as my full-time job anymore. I walked away from the agency that I was working with this year because I wanted to really expand on the idea that I'm saying of like being a creative. And I felt like um, the title of model was just limiting me in that way.
Mm.
And so, yeah, now, or like maybe 2 or 3 years ago, I wanted to, during the pandemic, I really wanted to contribute to the people in some way, specifically Black people, like with everything that was happening with George Floyd. I really was like the fact that my work stopped as a model and there was nothing else that I can contribute, it just made me think about things differently. And I was like, from here on out, I do want to contribute to the world in a way. I want to feel like I have purpose. And my business ideas went through many different variations. And at first, I tried to create a marketing company. I tried to
Mm.
I was thinking about creating an agency where we would outsource our services specifically to small Black businesses. But ultimately, I think I was like, okay, what can I start like right now? And I had a lot of insight about the modeling industry. So I was like, okay, I can do some kind of consulting there, like tell people how to get into the industry, let them know that it's not that hard. It's about being yourself, how not to get scammed and things like that. And then I realized, and I was talking about commercial modeling specifically
Mm.
that highlights real people. And then as I was going through that process, I just kept recognizing that I kept saying like, oh, they just want you to be yourself. Like they just want you to be yourself. And like, if you have a full-time job and do something else, that'll be so cool. Like they love that story. They love hearing about how you're this and that. They love like hearing your multifaceted
Yep.
career. They love, and I was like, wait a minute, like, what's really the theme here? Like, what am I talking about? And I was like, I'm talking about personality. I'm talking
Mm.
about storytelling. I'm talking about individuality. I'm talking about like bringing all of your experiences together. And I'm like, why am I just limiting myself to being like, you can do all of this to work with an agency? I'm like, you can do all of this like to create your own
Yeah.
personal sense of agency,
Mm.
right? And that's when I changed it to like, no, I don't want this to be like how to get you, a funnel into modeling. I'm like, that's just one of the things that you could do when you develop and use your story and figure out who you are. Like, yeah. And I was like, I want to focus on that piece. And so I reeled it back and reeled it forward, whatever, like in a different way. And I stopped talking so much about the
Mhm.
modeling. And then I started really focusing on like the personal brand, the story of you, the wealth of your experiences.
Yeah, I mean, thank you for sharing that story and going into so much depth and detail. It's so helpful to hear, like your thought process through these different phases and what was happening in those moments that inspired you to pivot or to take an action.
Yeah.
And one of the common themes that I'm hearing that I think really does connect with storytelling is that you have this sense of a deep self awareness. Like at every stage of your journey, what I heard you talking about was kind of going inward and really kind of like having a moment with yourself and
Yeah.
saying like, does this feel right? Is this the path that I want to be on? And if this isn't it, like what is there? And then
Yeah.
kind of um and then figuring out how to get to where you want to go. So, like when you were talking about your time at Hearst Magazine, and how you were in this role, but you didn't just waste the time away, right?
Yeah.
You were actively reaching out. You were putting out feelers. You were connecting with people. You were using that time wisely to get more information under your belt, to really to expand your portfolio. And then you have this idea about modeling, and you really thought about that, and thought about how that actually fits into your life, and why this might be a great time
Yeah.
versus maybe it wasn't the perfect time when I was a kid, but now it feels like this is the right time. And then exploring that and taking that leap of faith. And I think a big part of our journey through life and through career is having this deep sense of self-awareness. It's
Yeah.
giving ourselves space to and you talk a lot about collaboration, and you talk a lot about bouncing ideas off of other people. You talk about
Yeah.
how your mom was an influence, but
Yeah.
what I also heard was these moments of kind of self-reflection and just agreeing with yourself about what felt like the right path to take. um, and this is actually something that I'm more recently have stepped into my power with, is
Hmm.
this idea that if it feels good, it's okay to pursue it. Like, it's not a bad thing,
Yeah.
because I think I've had this idea that if it feels good, it's probably not good for me, right?
Hmm.
Like, if it's feeling good, if I like it, then that's not the path. I need to
Yeah.
go through the path of most resistance. Like, I need to do
Mm.
the thing that feels hard, because that is what's gonna like propel me forward. Like,
Yeah.
that success is overcoming the challenge. And I've had to really sit with myself and say, hey, Clary, like, it's okay to like your job. Like,
Right.
it's okay to like creating things, and it's okay to pursue those things that you enjoy.
Yeah.
um and so hearing kind of this story kind of come full circle for you, going into journalism and figuring out, like, man, like, listicles, maybe not working at a $20,000. I mean, that was a big thing for me too,
Yeah.
going into broadcast journalism and coming out. I'm like, I don't want to. I worked in a couple newsrooms, intern. I was like, I don't want to work in the middle of nowhere making 20,000.
Right. That too. Right.
I'm just not interested in that.
Yeah.
And giving myself permission to choose a different path. And so, a lot of this, guys, is checking back in with yourself and saying, does this feel good? Does this feel right? And if the answer is no, then make a plan of action.
That's right.
Well, we're back to the part of our show where I get to guess where you are. You are in an office, and you are in the United States.
Hmm.
We've agreed to that point. I'm going to guess that you are in New York.
I'm not in New York.
Oh, you're not in New York. Okay. Well, give me another clue about this one.
Um, it's definitely it's definitely like a popular state. So it's not New
Okay.
York, but it's a popular state. Yeah.
I have an idea where you might be.
Okay.
I have an idea.
I'm having too much fun, clearly.
I can
Okay.
see that. Okay, well, it's your turn to guess,
Oh,
Brian.
okay. Um, mm, okay. So I'm gonna try to really use what's coming in my mind, context clues. So this place, it's not giving like modern. The lights are no, the
No.
lights, even the plants, the seats, like it's giving a little. So I say that to say I know it's not like, one of like a New York.
Yeah.
It's giving. I haven't been a lot of places, so where I say it's giving, you're gonna be like, really, because I haven't really been anywhere. It's statewide, but I'm gonna say, I mean, I want to say like a place like Chicago. Um, I want to say a place. It looks like character, like it looks like a
Yeah.
history. it looks like that's why that is there. It's not like they're not choosing to be modern. They're like, we value the history over the trend. So I don't want to say Chicago because I feel like I know you're in Chicago. That would be like so on the nose. But
It wouldn't be the first time.
um um I never been to Portland, but I'm gonna say Portland.
Ooh, not Portland, but I think you're getting closer with the vibes of this place. I'm actually going to go ahead and give you a clue.
Okay.
And my clue is going to actually run back a clue that I gave you earlier. So
Yeah.
earlier in the show, you said that it was a restaurant, and I
Yeah.
said no, it's not quite a restaurant. It actually is a restaurant. So
Okay.
let me tell you about the menu of
Oh,
this
okay.
place. Okay, cool. So this place serves breakfast, lunch, and dinner. And they also stock a large selection of teas, coffees, wines, drought, bottled beers, and a very affordable selection of cakes, tray bakes, and main dishes.
Wow.
Yeah,
I love this place.
yeah.
Have everything.
Hmm, hmm.
Okay.
Um,
Okay.
I'll give you a clue about where this place exists.
Okay.
Okay, cool. So the official animal of this country is the unicorn.
Oh. Oh, a country. Oh, so you're not in the US?
Well,
Oh,
on,
sorry.
on to the next
Okay,
question.
right. Wow. Okay. Well, that makes sense. Well, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
I like
you're close. You're close.
huh. Oh my
Okay.
gosh. I feel like we're wow. Okay. Let me write this down.
All right. Well, prior to this interview, you stated, I love the discovery aspect of storytelling. Can you tell us
Yes.
a little bit more about that? What is discovery and what makes a good story?
Mm. Discovery means something is presented to you, something is revealed to you, and what I say makes a good story is really show not tell, right? Like that we hear. But it really is so that those two things, right? It's a show not tell, and it's telling you something that you didn't expect. So another great example of that is like I have one in my mind specifically for this, but um oh okay, so like if you ask me, where am I from? And I just say Brooklyn, New York, yes, I answered your question, but I didn't bring any elements to you to give you any kind of context of what that was like for me and how that answer connects to who I am.
Mhm.
Right. So what I would prefer is first of all, I'm an only child, and my husband always is like, "You don't even know how to answer something directly and straight. Like you go on this whole long tangent because not only does that just how I see it in my head, but I think as a kid, like I always loved like I understood that friends like were great for me. Like they kept me entertained. I kept them entertained. And I realized if I just gave them an answer, like they would take it and leave. But if I created this story, like they would like be interested and they want to come back, they want to stay. So and using that example, I always start with like how I feel about what you're asking me. Unintentionally. So if you ask me like where I'm from, I'm already like, listen, like I'm 10 toes down about my city, right? So now you already know like, oh, she's very passionate about where she's from, right? And then once I reveal to you like I'm from Brooklyn, New York, again, never just in there, I'm like, and I've lived there my whole life. I love being from New York because I feel like I'm in a city where I live with a bunch of people who are expressing themselves every day, and it makes me feel normal. Like that says so much. Right now, that I like self-expression. That I like being around other people. That I like have a sense of pride of on certain things. I like community. I like being associated with other people. Right, like all of that is coming to your mind just from that answer. So it's like I think it helps people in a good way, like get their gears going about you, but you giving some context to help them do that. Versus if you give them nothing, they can be making ideas about you based on maybe their experiences or assumptions, right? And there are probably assumptions anyway, but at least these assumptions kind of have like some guardrails versus just like random
Mhm.
things.
I really love the way that you kind of describe storytelling as showing and not telling, because it really kind of connects with this idea that storytelling isn't only a written medium
Yeah.
or a verbal medium. It could be modeling, it could be the expression. And then, even as you were talking, when you were saying, like, I'm 10 toes down with my city, like, I was paying attention to, like, like,
Exactly.
your body is giving your enthusiasm.
Yes.
And all of that, like, right when you were talking about bringing your full story and bringing your full self into the story, like, that's storytelling, it's the expression. And I think I learned this a lot, and I guess this is more just in general about communication. One of the things that I tell students, from what I've learned studying abroad in Costa Rica, living
Mm.
with a family that spoke no English, and then me not speaking a ton of Spanish, is that
Yeah.
so much of communication is body language.
Yes.
So much of it is body language. And so that would be the same for storytelling. Storytelling is the full expression. Um, it's the verbal expression, it's the written expression, it's the
Yeah.
bodily expression. It's like it's emanating from you.
Oh, I love that.
Um, and so that just like really just kind of stuck out to me. And then I want everyone to really pay attention to this conversation, because this is how you win interviews, guys. Like, when you go into an interview and they say, tell me a little bit about yourself, tell me where you're from, that's exactly what you want to do. You want to give the context, right?
Hmm.
This isn't just a yes or no answers. You're not just giving one liners. We want to take the listener deep. We want to keep them engaged. We want them to know more about us. And the
Yes.
reason why is because storytelling, it evokes emotion, right? It's
Hmm.
the emotion that you're bringing to the table and that you're giving off, right? Because you love New York. Now I'm excited. Like,
Right.
I'm trying to
Right.
find out, like, where's this energy? Like, I need to go visit now, right? Like, I
Right.
need to be there because you're so enthusiastic about it. It's all over you.
Yes.
And so that's the same thing, is if you go into an interview and you're enthusiastic about who you are and your background and what you bring to the table, now that other person who's on the other side who's listening to you is going to be like, oh, like, I need to know a little bit more about
Exactly.
this person. Like, we need to take this to that next interview, right? We need to push this person forward, because we need
Yeah.
to we now I'm interested, now I'm engaged, now I'm here for the
Yeah.
conversation. Yeah.
I love that. And just to finish that piece, I want to say it just like how you were saying storytelling being, a tool that was used from the beginning of time. So storytelling also plays into our human nature,
Mm.
right? Like most of us, if somebody has that kind of enthusiasm, you cannot help. Like literally your body cannot help but like be engaged, be affected and be like, "Oh my gosh," right? So it's like it's a tool that literally can work to your benefit just on the psychology of people. It's like bound to work. So it's like it'll help you, and like we have proof of concept.
Yes. Yes. Um yeah, I mean, and that's so evident in how storytelling has also been used to communicate across cultures, and key stories, is like, it what you said, it's proven, right?
Yeah.
And it will continue even after we try to figure out and guess where you are in the
Yeah.
world.
Oh, I'm telling you, it has the full circle moment of this. You're gonna love it. You're gonna be
Oh, okay.
so happy.
Oh, okay. Okay,
Yes.
okay, cool, cool. Okay. So,
Is it guessing time?
well, yes,
Okay,
yeah,
I'll give you a
yeah.
clue because you gave me a lot of clues. So I will tell
Okay.
you, this is the headquarters.
Okay, so I was gonna say Hearst headquarters.
No.
No.
I'm like, not that one.
Okay, so this is not Hearst headquarters. Um, is this the headquarters of a magazine?
No.
Or
I
okay,
will tell another clue. This is the headquarters of a place that really resonates with me today in my current season. It's a
okay,
place that I would love to contribute to in some way.
okay.
They have been in my life for years, and I think there used to be, again, just all this unlearning stuff. I feel like there used to be a negative connotation with still being, I don't want to say too much. There used to be a negative connotation of liking this place
Oh,
for particular
oh,
reasons. But now that I'm like an adult, I'm like, I get to write the rules of my life. And I, yeah, I
okay.
love this place.
Oh, okay.
I love this headquarters. I've
See,
never been, but you know.
you're getting me excited about it. But I have an idea of how I can get down to where you are, but I'll
Okay.
save it for the next question. It is
Okay.
your turn to guess where I am.
Oh my gosh. Okay, so you're out of the country. So, oh man. So you said drinks, baking. So that's my first note was like maybe you're at a headquarters because they like maybe it's like a rest like the restaurant portion of this place. But then I was thinking about the work piece, and it's like even if a place had a headquarters, they might let you like eat there, but they're not about to let you work out of there. I mean, but that's in the US, so I really don't know. But yeah, I don't know out of the country that has all this stuff outside of a headquarters and let you go there. I really don't know. So I guess I could just try to figure out where you are. You are in, I'm gonna say like um like a Spanish speaking country.
Oh, oh, not quite Spanish speaking, but
Mm,
you're getting closer. You're
okay.
getting closer. We are not in a Spanish speaking country. Um, but I can give you a clue about this place.
Okay.
There are more than 600 square miles of freshwater lakes in this country.
Mm, okay. And I'm assuming this is a no Google game.
Oh yeah, we use Google on this
Oh,
one.
I can?
Yeah,
No,
yeah.
I'm not gonna. I don't. I can find that probably really quick. I don't want to spoil it, but
um,
freshwater lakes. Okay.
yeah.
Okay. I'll
I
ponder
have
on it.
I have a great clue coming up for you
Okay.
after this question.
Yeah.
Cool. All right. So your story is a colorful one. You're a journalist, marketer, consultant, connector, model. How do you create that thread in your story that connects all of these dimensions of you? And what would you say to a young professional who is struggling to express all of their unique layers?
I love this question so much, and it becomes clear to me as I go on. I think there's a misconception that when we are tailoring our stories to bring in all of our past experiences, that once we come up with that story, that we're telling the same story no matter who we're talking to.
Mm.
And kind of like what we discussed so far is there should be a personal connection to the person that you're speaking to, right? So I always tailor how I'm going to weave in my experiences to the person I'm talking to. So I think a great way of doing that is, for example, if I'm talking to a family member who is like, hey, I've been seeing you on Facebook. I'm not really sure like what's going on with you. Like, what's the connection? Or like, what are you doing? I am going to find a point of connection to them that's relevant, right? Maybe I ask them where they work, or maybe, you know, I know that they use Facebook. So maybe I'll start with like marketing, right? Like, and I'm going to tie that in to say, Also make it an education piece, right? Because it's clear that this person doesn't know what I'm doing. So it's
Mhm.
like using those context clues, right? Of like, okay, this person doesn't understand. So maybe if I use their point of reference, give them some education, and then tie in what I'm doing, that can be helpful. Also, it's again, all of this stuff matters. Like if I'm talking to a 60-year-old, I'm probably not going to mention my 10 careers, right? I'm probably just going to mention two just to take it there and make sure that they understand. I used to, for that, I might say, yeah, I used to work in marketing. I was making this and that. And now I do marketing in a different form where I help entrepreneurs, right? That's like clear enough. But if I'm talking to, like, if I am, which I had an interview for an ad agency, I didn't go all the way back to my journalism career, but I
Mhm.
did tie in um, really kind of the modeling piece because it was during my modeling career that I was doing a lot of freelance work. And during that time, that's when I learned the power of, that's when I was working as an experiential marketer. That's when I was working as a brand ambassador. I was doing, right, again, things that he would want to hear from me as a producer at an ad agency. He probably doesn't really care that I used to want to work at Hearst magazines, right? So I'm thinking, what points of relevancy um, would connect what he wants to hear to my story? So I would say to do that, I would really, even if you're just meeting that person, right? Like just asking them a little bit about what they do and then finding points of reference to see how what they do can connect with what they might want to hear from you.
Mhm. Yeah. So something that's coming up for me is what I like to say is you are the narrator of your own narrative. So so often and I want to talk about storytelling in the sense of like even just looking at your life and how you express your story or express your path or talk about some of like maybe even the challenges you've had in your life.
Yeah,
Um like your story is your own and you can choose how you tell that story.
exactly.
There is no one way to tell your story. You put the pieces together. No one knows what your experience
Right.
was until you tell them. And so, if your story is focusing on all the negative things that have happened to you,
Hmm.
then that's your story. Now you
Exactly.
have a story of struggle.
Yeah.
If your story is about all of the positive things that have happened to you, now you have a story of always having a triumph.
Right.
But when you get to the nitty gritty and you really get down to like the root and heart of what motivates you and what's inspired you and what has like created changes in your life, now we're telling a story that is complex and that is complete. And so a lot of times when I work with young people is in your resumes and in your interviews, um, refer back to what we call the story arc. So the
Hmm.
story arc is classic. You can apply it to almost any story. We have the opening portion of our story where we are just kind of setting it up.
Hmm.
Then we have some kind of rising action. So what's leading to like this intense moment, and then we have this climax. We have this moment where of conflict, or
Yeah.
we go through a challenge, or we capture an opportunity, right? And then we have this falling action where we learn something from that challenge, or we learn something from that opportunity, and then we have the resolution, which is what was our key takeaway and where are we going from here.
Yeah.
And so if you can kind of weave this this classic story arc and use that and apply it to your life, you might be surprised at seeing how far you've come and what you've overcome. And the thing is, like, in our lives, and just like in a movie, you might have many different points of climax. You
Yeah.
might have
Absolutely.
many different points of falling actions and resolutions. And that's literally when we talk about on the show riding the tide, that's the wave of life. It's
Yeah.
that starting action, it's the rising action, it's the climax, it's the falling action, and you just keep doing it over and over again. That's the wave of life, and we ride the tide. And
Exactly.
so, I love this idea of really tailoring your story to your audience and who you're talking to, and kind of getting into their psychology a little bit of like, well, what would this person really want to hear from me? Like,
Yeah.
what's going to be interesting for them? What's going to get them excited about me?
Right.
And then pulling out those elements of your story and really highlighting those.
Yes, and I tell people too, like, because there is some feedback, or what comes to mind are like people like, oh, so are you telling me to tell people what they want to hear? And it's like, no, because this is your story, and this is based on your truth, and this is based on your experiences, right? So there's obviously, we can imagine there's so much that has happened in your life, and to make sure that we're not boring the person or telling them something that they don't care about, we are just being specific and strategic. That's why I love to call myself a strategist, right? I'm like, I'm not telling you what to say and making a story. I'm helping you strategically tell it, right, and place certain things and how to present yourself in a certain way that aligns with your goals, right? So it's like, no, it's not like pretending. It's not telling somebody that, oh yeah, I love working on the weekends,
Yeah.
just to get a job. It's not saying that. It's not telling them what they want to hear in that way. But again, if realizing if there's a connection that could resonate and connect the pieces from you to them.
Yeah. And it's like, well, what do you want them to know? Right.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. I think for me, a lot of my stories start with my mom. I start a lot of my stories with how she used to read to me when I was a kid,
Mm.
and that's how I learned, how I developed a love for reading, and that translated into writing, and then that translated into going to school for broadcast journalism because I wasn't sure what else I was going to do, and I was first
Right.
generation college kid, and I knew I loved storytelling. I knew I loved acting, and my
Nice.
mom was like, "Journalism sounds like it might
Nice.
be a great merge of both of those."
Oh,
And then
great.
that going, and then figuring out that I really love entrepreneurship, and then just kind of riding that, and again, tailoring that story to my audience based on what's most relevant for the conversation. Like, what do they need to know, and what do I want
Yeah.
them to know?
And as you tell it, you will start to learn, right? Based on how
Reacting.
people are,
Yep.
yeah, reacting, or like the questions that they ask, like immediately, right? When you were saying that, I'm like, oh my gosh, like you saying that your mom read to you, as someone who was raised with a single mom, that immediately like shined
Mhm.
out to me. And then you said the acting, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I wonder how that comes in, because of my experience with modeling, right? So it's like the things of your story that are speaking to me are because they resonate, right? There's
Yeah.
a personal connection to my story. So yeah, it's
Yeah.
great. It's like, how could
Yeah.
you not love storytelling? I love it.
Yeah.
I love it so much.
Well, speaking of storytelling, I have a feeling that this place is going to lead us back to storytelling. I have an idea of where we might be
Where?
based on your description, but I don't know. I feel like it's not it. Um, this is a headquarters. Okay, so here we are in the United States. I'm gonna take this region by region.
Okay.
We're not in New York. However, you said this is a popular state. The most popular states are on the east and the west coast. So I'm gonna guess that you are on the west coast.
I am. I am.
Okay. So this is a place that has a headquarters on the West Coast. Can you give me another clue about this place?
So, what I was telling you before about like, this is a place that ties into storytelling. Especially in my current season in my life. I I just I've always loved this place, but now I just look at it so much differently, and I have like a true like sense of pride and awe of like this headquarters. And yeah, it's a place that I hope to contribute to in one way. One day. Um,
Okay. I'll take it. I'll take
okay,
it. I'll take it.
okay.
Well, it's your turn to guess where I'm
Child, this is so hard.
at.
um, okay, maybe I need to ask more questions. So what language do they speak here?
Oh, that's a great question. English is the primary language.
What?
To be fair, there are a lot of English
Accents?
primary English speaking
Yeah.
countries that are not the United States, but English is the primary language.
Okay,
Or
so
actually, wait a minute. I might be actually wrong about that. Hold on.
are you in London?
I am not in London, but give me a
Oh,
second because I
okay.
actually probably am wrong. Hold on, give me a second. What is the official
And London doesn't have the good
language
lakes.
of this place? Oh, English is one of the main language. Gaelic
So
is.
you are in, oh my gosh. I was gonna say Germany, but I don't know if that's the language. If that's the
German
no,
would be the
Scotch,
language.
yeah. Or oh my gosh, I was just watching a movie and they were speaking this. And they were in Scotland. Is
We
that
are
it?
in Scotland. Yes, we are. We are in Scotland. Ah, you got it. um, but where am I in
I
Scotland?
know. So you are it's that's cheap to
I
just say you're
had
at a pub. Like that's
I
just
had another really good clue for you, but I think since you guessed that we're in Scotland, I'm gonna save it to the next one.
um
Awesome. All right. Well, next question. um. So you talk about storytelling and wanting to help others tell their story. What's one story of your own life that's meaningful that you would want to share?
yes. Um so I guess it's a sum of many stories. I feel like I things happen to me by the week, by the day that I'm like I'm an abundance of like a billion stories. Um but what I wrote or what I was thinking like generally is like I used to what I have found in all of like the arcs, right, of life that you were saying of the storytelling arc is like my gut has always been right. And I've realized that my fear was rationalizing, or my my fear was masquerading as rationale.
Hmm.
Right? So it's like my gut knew exactly what I wanted to do. I don't like this. I need to leave. I should pursue this, such and such, right? I always knew. And then it was like the rationale of like, well, how's that going to look? What are people going to think? What are you going to do? You don't have a next step, right? And I used to think like, well, I'm just being, I'm just being prepared, right? I'm just being, so generally, I want to answer that first. Generally, I have found that like that has recognizing that and then now that I see it being able to counteract it in real time being like what's happening here, is this really protection or is this really trying to prevent me from doing the thing that I know I should do. um but a particular story that I have is, especially it's about job that I would share, is I was watching a movie, everything everywhere all at once.
Yes.
I mean, where do we even start? But I love that movie. The first time I saw it was on the plane. I was crying. I didn't know what to expect. Like it literally shook me. So the second time I watched it, I was prepared. I had my notebook. I was ready for notes. I was like, let's go, because I know this really spoke to me in a visceral way.
Hmm.
And after watching that movie, not to give any spoilers, but the point is to just be who you are. Take ownership of the life that you have now to live it the way you want to. And I applied to this job.
Wow.
I sent them an email. I had already applied and I felt like I didn't hear, I not even I felt like I didn't hear from them, but I
Mhm.
really liked this agency. I really liked what they represented. They were so much in line with the things that I was looking for now in an agency. And I sent them an email addressing the elephant in the room, and I was like, I'm breaking all unsaid rule protocol by sending you an email at 10:30 or after 10:30 p.m. Um, I really like this agency because of this, this, and this. I like how you're untraditional and you just get to the point. And like, I was like, I'm not in the business of trying to trick people, like, or trying to make people right. So I'm tying in our values like very simply. I was like, my background is this. Like, I have learned how to take different experiences and use them to connect with people. I was like, I would love to talk about working with you in a creative capacity. Maybe it's consulting, maybe it's this. And I was like, if you reach out to me, I will tell you what the hell inspired this email.
Mm.
And
Oh,
yeah, and I was like, here's my resume, like, hope to hear from you. And of course, I heard back from them.
yes.
Of course.
That's
No,
great. Yeah.
seriously, how could you? It not even me though, right? Like, how could
Mm.
someone read something like that so honest, so raw, so authentic, and not at a bare minimum have a conversation,
Yeah.
right? So to me, like, I trusted my gut in that moment. um that because I was already in that sense of feeling excited, feeling like, yeah, I could take ownership of my life. Like, what do I want to do? And not let the rationale, quote unquote, or the fear of like, oh my God, they're going to think that's so crazy. That's so such and such. Because what I have found is like, listen, if I'm going to present myself, I'd rather that people get to see me. Right. And if it does come off a little bit crazy, maybe the people that I'm supposed to work with will like it. And if they don't, then we aren't supposed to be working together. But like, I no longer want to be in this space that the person that is really me, I'm
Mhm.
hiding in case that you don't accept it. I'd rather just show up as that. And like, if it's
Yes.
not for you, then it's okay.
Yes. Oh, I love that. Um, that hit on so many levels with just it and specifically as a woman of color working in corporate America as a natural woman, that was one of the things that I had to get over is just showing up and saying, "Hey, this is me. I'm showing up
Yeah.
naturally, and if I'm showing up in a place and you don't like it, if I'm not good enough, then I don't want to be here. Then I need to be
And even
somewhere
that good
else."
enough. Like, what
Yeah,
are you even?
yeah, yeah. Like if my natural hair bothers you, then I don't belong.
Exactly.
you know,
Exactly.
yeah, like
Literally that. And it's like, why would I create an environment where I'm hiding the very thing that I like to do and that comes naturally for
yeah,
me just for you? And it's
yeah.
like, we gotta switch that. You change, not me.
And I mean, and that's kind of the core part. And when we talk about diversity, it's not just diversity in terms of like your ethnicity. It's also like your personality, how you show
Yeah,
up, how you problem solve, how you think, your diversity of experience that motivates you, and being able to bring all of that to the table, being able to bring like that personality and that authentic self to the table, and look at what that opportunity brought you, right? So
exactly.
thank you for sharing that
Yes.
story. All right. So I'm just going to throw something out there. I have no
Okay.
idea where you are. Are you at Amazon
Mm,
headquarters?
no, I'm not.
Oh, okay. Well, you said
But
it had kind of a negative connotation.
I know you were
It,
thinking when I saw where you're, but I don't want to say once I reveal, you'll be like, oh, okay, I see why you said that.
okay.
Is it time? Can I reveal?
Not yet.
Oh, I'm
We
like,
have we have um one more question. We have one
okay,
more question after this. Well, two more technically.
okay.
Okay, but it's your turn to guess where I am.
Oh yeah. So did I ask if are you at a headquarters?
I'm not at a headquarters. No, not technically.
Okay.
But I am at a restaurant.
Yeah,
We are in
you at a res
Scotland.
in Scotland.
We are in Scotland. I'm gonna
Is
give you.
there
Mhm.
is there significance to this
Oh
place?
yes, there is. I'm gonna give you a clue, and that'll hopefully it'll reveal the significance. Um, and I'm hoping I'm gonna say this correctly. Expecto Patronum. That is
That
your
did
clue.
nothing but put my head in a tizzy. Okay. All right.
Okay. Don't
Rather
ask
to
me to say that
pretend. Yeah,
again.
I don't even know.
Um,
But I love that. I love that you found that expression and tried to help
oh,
me.
and here's another one. Here's another one. Alarte ascendare.
Wow. Okay, you did something like this, so maybe it gave me magic.
Okay. Hold on. The way that this place describes itself on its website is experience the magic yourself.
Ah,
Visit us and savor a cup of tea or coffee before venturing out to explore historic Edinburgh.
wow. Okay, so I never watched Harry Potter. I don't know where that's located, but is it something, is it has something to do with Harry Potter?
It does. It does have something to do with Harry Potter. Mhm.
Okay. Ah.
All right. Well, we're almost here at a close. I have a couple more questions for you.
Okay.
According to Go Globe, only 5% of people remember statistics, but 63% remember stories.
Mm-hmm.
I'm curious of what your thoughts are on these numbers and what pro tips can you offer young professionals who want to master the art of storytelling, who want to tell better stories, whether it's in interviews or networking, but they're not sure to start where to start.
Yeah, I mean, I'm gonna bring back that example that I shared earlier of like when you just answer a question with no context to it, or weaving it into something. Yeah, it's just like random facts. And like as humans, we remember a bunch of random facts for survival that like a lot of things, if it's not survival, that we're just gonna forget. But if it's weaved into a story, a narrative, something that ties into you, something that used to be my favorite studying technique. Like trying like a word, right? When I was French, like a word, instead of just trying to remember the word, being like, oh, this means store. Think of somebody going to the store and saying, right? Like it just I guess it enhances more of your imagination, and it helps you remember versus like this just stale. That's how I see like a fact, like just a stale random thing just sitting on a shelf versus when you tell a story, it ignites an imagination.
Hmm.
So yeah, I totally agree with the facts. I think it makes sense. And what's tips that people can use in order to tell more compelling stories? I would, here's the thing, which is, I know it's easier said than done, but it really is like that knee jerk of a thing that you want to say and do, but you go, no, 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 I can't say that.
Hmm.
It's that, right? It's like just how I told you I'm excited about being from New York. There are some moments where I feel myself being like, no, you can't say that. But I try my best to like lead with that because like that is a great, it's great. It's kind of like, if anything, we should be unlearning the walk back, right? Because I
Mhm.
think intentionally, or not even intentionally, I think like we are intuitively, we want to do that. We want to just go and say, ah, oh my god, I love this. Or you want to say your favorite show is Family Guy, speaking for myself, right? But I know that in certain spaces I'm like, oh, I don't know, like I don't know if I should like Family
Yeah.
Guy, but it's like the dialing back is what makes it so much work, right? It's like, okay, how can I convey who I am without sounding like this, without doing that, without, right? That's actually so much work.
Hmm.
So I would say the easiest way to really be yourself is being yourself.
Hmm. Dang, that
I
is.
know. I know it's not the answer that many people like to hear, but it's the truth.
Hmm. It reminds me of a quote, and I don't ask me who says it, but it's like there is no path to peace. There is just peace, right? There is no path to just to being yourself. It's just being yours. Just be yourself.
Exactly.
And you were talking a little bit about this earlier, and this came to me about kind of this idea or this making this um, distinguishing between your intuition and your fear or your anxiety.
Yeah.
And you have kind of like both of these conversations happening in your head. One is your intuition that's just like go, 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 or do it, or take the leap of faith, or trust yourself, trust your gut. Yes.
Mhm.
And then there's this fear that's like, well, yeah, is it safe? Should I?
Right.
What if? What might happen? What will they think? What will be the outcome? And we have to get to this point, and that's again where these moments of self-awareness come into play, is because when we go into ourselves and we have those moments of meditation and moments of self-reflection,
Mhm.
we can begin to start to distinguish between those two voices, between those
Mhm.
two thought processes. It's really challenging, at least for me,
Yeah.
um, to do that, but there are certain exercises that I've been able to do. So, and we talk about this a lot on the show. I talk a lot about anxiety, but like one of them is meditation. The
Yeah.
other one is like going out into nature and actually being present and listening to the birds chirp and listening
Yeah.
to the wind and the sounds around you, and starting to kind of really you start to like start to realize like what are those thoughts that keep happening over and over and over in your brain, that
Yeah.
just they're on repeat, they're just constantly there, and what are kind of these other like more divinely inspired ideas that are
Yes.
coming
There
from
you go.
somewhere else. And the more that you do that, the more skilled you'll become in being
Yeah.
able to tell the difference.
One of the things that I don't know who I heard it from. I think my mom told me actually, but um especially when you said divine. So like spiritually I am like, I want to be seen in the image and the likeness of God. And I see like God is like righteous and kind and bold and confident, right? So my mom told me like the voice of the opposition, however you identify that, the voice of the opposition is always going to be so negative,
Hmm.
right? So like if it's something that you want to do, or whatever you should do, if you feel like God or the universe is pulling you in that direction, it's never going to be like, why would you think that? That's so crazy. It's going to bomb. That's ridiculous. That's right. Like the 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 divine is never going to speak to you like that, right? It's so just by default of like the difference of the two, that's how I kind of be like, huh. So, if it's like, have you tried that? Didn't you say you wanted to do that? That would be so cool,
Yeah.
right? Stuff like that I try to lean more into, in the thoughts that are telling me like, yeah, that I'm stupid, that this is ridiculous, that like why would anybody care? There's already somebody doing that, right? Those kind of voices, I'm like, oh, that doesn't sound like the divine, and it probably is more of a indicator that I should lean in.
Mm, I love that. And the more that we listen to that divine, the better we get at hearing that voice.
Exactly.
Well, we're here near the end of our show. There's one question left. It's a question that we ask all of our guests. But before we do, neither of us have guessed where the other person is. I think you're
No.
closer than I am. Um, I'm going to guess that you are at a headquarters in California. I I will admit that I googled headquarters in California. I did.
Did you put in storytelling?
I did not put in
Oh,
storytelling.
you this spot probably would have came right up.
Oh, that's interesting.
You could try now. Go ahead.
Oh, wait, I'm gonna Google it, guys. um, headquarters in California, storytelling.
Dun, 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 dun.
Let's see. Well, there are a
There's a
lot
lot, right?
coming up here. Um, so I am going to guess that you are. Yeah, you are at brand storytelling.
I'm not, but listen, you're
The
the
Storytelling
storytelling help.
Association of California?
No. This is a place. This is like a place that like you know, maybe like it's in the back of your mind, but you know them. You've seen them
Mm,
throughout your life.
throughout my life.
Yeah. Now I'm giving you more clues since we're at the end.
Well, I'm gonna fold.
Okay.
I'm gonna fold. It's not
Okay.
Google.
No.
Okay.
But in that realm.
Oh, it is.
Okay.
Wait a minute. Wait. It's in the realm of
Well,
Google.
no, let me not say that. It's not.
Oh,
It
Netflix,
just no, but you're okay, but no. It's in the Netflix
Hulu.
space. No.
All right. Go ahead and
Okay. So
reveal
I'm gonna
where.
say
Yeah.
I'm gonna jump to the place that tripped you up. The reason why I said there's a negative connotation is because these movies are often associated with being for kids. So
Oh,
I am
Disney.
at Pixar
Pixar.
Studios.
It's so good. That's so good. That's so cool.
I'm obsessed with Pixar movies, and I always was, and I used to think like that's so weird. You're an adult, like why are you still watching this? And like, but I just leaned into it. Like, no, I love them, and really, I love them because of the storytelling. Like,
Yes.
oh
Mm.
my gosh,
Wally.
storytelling at its finest, and they do
Yes.
such a great job, like you were saying, of across cultures. Like
Yeah.
I recognize, like from the 2010s on, like they've really made a concerted effort to highlight different cultures through these movies, and it's like I personally have learned so much. Like from Encanto, I've learned so much. Coco, Turning Red, like don't what?
Yes.
Like about different cultures. Bow is one of their Academy Award winning like short films. So I'm like honestly, like I'm attracted to this work for a reason. It's not
Yeah.
just because I'm choosing to be youthful. It's like no, there really is something there. So yeah, I personally watched 3 movies last night when I was doing my hair. I finally watched Princess and the Frog, which how can
Yes.
I not watch the movie of the first Black Disney princess? But I just never got around to it.
It's good. Yeah.
Amazing. And then I watched Cars 1 and 2.
Yes.
So good. Cars is so good. I'm like,
Okay,
I can't
Cars is
believe.
definitely one of my favorites. Cars, Wally, Up,
Yeah.
Toy
Up
Story, Princess and the
tears.
Frog. I mean, you could literally go on and on and on.
Right?
Yeah.
So yeah, shout out
That's such a great
the storytelling mavens, the OGs. Like, yeah.
yeah. Oh man, that's awesome. That gives me giggles. I love that. Well, it's your turn to guess again where I am.
Okay. You are at a Harry Potter um like tourism, like what do you call it? Like not a pop-up, but um
It
a
is one.
museum, a museum.
For some, it may be a museum. So,
Okay.
um, the Elephant House in Edinburgh, Scotland, is
Okay.
a pilgrimage site for any Potterhead. From the outside, and honestly from the
Oh,
inside as well, it seems like your average cafe, which is why I said it wasn't a restaurant, but it is a
right.
restaurant. However, this cafe is one of the cafes that provided space for J.K. Rowling to create not only a book series, but an entire magical world.
Oh
Uh,
wow.
yep. So that was a quote from For the Love of
Ah, so she
Wanderlust.
was working there.
Author J.K. Rowling had her first book published while she was writing in the back room overlooking Edinburgh Castle, making the Elephant House the birthplace of the series of Harry Potter novels.
I
So,
love
yes,
that.
it is a workspace
Oh,
as well
that's
as a
so
restaurant.
cool.
Yeah.
Right. Oh
Yeah.
wow, that's so
That
cool.
is really cool, huh?
And now people
Very
go
happy.
there because that's
Exactly.
so cool.
Yeah. Hmm.
Wow. That
Lots of
was
history
great.
here.
Yeah.
Well, we are on our final question, and it's a question that we ask all of our guests. And that question is, how would you describe success?
I would describe success as having full confidence to act on my ideas, to cultivate and inspire and activate a community of other people to tell their stories, to act on their ideas, to pursue their goals, and to really be able to buy breakfast, lunch, and dinner and not have to feel like doomsday, right? Not have to feel like, oh, I'm off the mark right now, or like I'm spending something that I shouldn't. Um, yeah.
Oh yeah. No, no, no. I feel that. Like being no, for real, like being able to I describe it as being able to like go into a store and not have to worry about how much things cost. But yeah, like
Yeah.
I love this idea of being able to buy breakfast, lunch and dinner.
Yeah, if I needed to, right? It's not to say all the time, but it's just like if I needed to, not feeling the stress of like, oh, I
How
don't
much
know
is this
about
gonna
this.
cost? Yeah.
Right. Like,
Mhm.
this might set you back. It's
Yeah,
like,
exactly. Red
no.
Lobster every night, maybe. Maybe throw a little Olive Garden in there. I
Right?
remember when Olive Garden used to be like,
Oh,
if you were
yeah.
going to Olive Garden, like you were rich. You were
That was, I used to ask every graduation, like, please,
yes.
if you could just find in your heart to make a reservation for me at Olive Garden. And my mom was like, yeah, totally. Like, I'll see what I could do, kind of thing. Like, girl, she probably was like, this girl don't want nothing to go to this lame ass restaurant. No.
Well, it's been such a pleasure having you on the show. Can you just tell our listeners where they can find you and learn more about you?
Yes.
Like, what's coming up for you?
Yeah, so actually, I'm in the midst of a very cool brand relaunch. So my website will be out and posted and live within a couple weeks, but you can in the meantime find me on Instagram at brand by CMG. A lot of the elements that I talked about today when it comes to storytelling, when it comes to leaning into the thing that comes naturally and not talking yourself out of that, I give a lot of advice, and I just finished a challenge to get people to share something that they feel like they've been hoarding but they know that they want to share. So we do a lot of like in practice things. So not, you're not just reading ideas, but you're actually like putting them to use. So you can find me there.
Yeah, awesome. Well, Ashaya, it's been such a pleasure. Thanks for coming on, for sharing your story, for being vulnerable, and for helping us be better storytellers.
You're welcome. Thank you so much for having me.
Until next time, my friends. Peace out.
Bye.